This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman. As many as 4 million people took to the streets around the world Friday in the largest day of action focused on the climate crisis. Students across the globe participated in a climate strike inspired by the 16-year-old Swedish activist Greta Thunberg. Just over a year ago, Greta began skipping classes to protest in front of the Swedish parliament, demanding action to prevent catastrophic climate change. Her protest inspired millions around the world. On Friday, she joined the climate strike in New York City ahead of today's UN Climate Action Summit. Later in the show, we'll hear Greta in her own words. But first, we turn to more voices from Friday's protests. We begin with Varshini Prakash, co-founder and executive director of the Sunrise Movement, and climate activist Vik Barrett addressing climate strikers in Foley Square as the march began.
Vic Barrett, Nidive, Garifuna, Nuguya. Vic Barrett is my name. I am Garifuna. My people are an Afro-Indigenous community from the island of St. Vincent in the Caribbean. Despite overwhelming adversity, we organized our community and emancipated ourselves from colonization. My ancestors did this to protect the children to come. I am one of those children. But the struggle continues for me and my people. Again, we are being pushed from the lands which we settled, the lands that my family has inhabited for generations. That land will be underwater in a few decades if we continue on the path we're on. I was born into a world in which my future is being stolen from me. Born into a world in which my past already was. Born into a world where everything that I am is slipping into the sea. Born into a world where my people face extinction. Indigenous lands all over our planet are being flooded, poisoned, and destroyed. My black brothers and sisters are being gunned down by police. Migrant children are dying at the border. Trans folks are being murdered. Violence is in the air that we breathe. The spectacular violence of the police on marginalized people and the slow violence of dispossession and disenfranchisement on those same communities. Some would think that there's no more room for destruction. But I think that all of us here know that for decades, our government and governments around the world have consciously put policies in place that have caused the climate crisis that we find ourselves in. An emerging crisis threatening my generation with untold violence. But this is an old story, right? A story that we're tired of hearing, right? That is why we're here. We're here to write a new story. A story in which our country is doing everything in its power to address not only the climate crisis, but the systemic injustices at its roots. A story in which our constitutional right to a safe climate is recognized by the highest courts. A story in which the most vulnerable people are given the greatest protections. A story in which indigenous peoples are empowered to protect their homelands. In 2030, the history books will show that faced with imminent destruction, people on the front lines fought back. That young people rose up around the world to demand immediate action. That starting on this day, September 20th, 2019, everything began to change. The momentum became unstoppable. Billions of people joined the next global climate strike. The United States Supreme Court enshrined our constitutional right to a stable climate, and politicians around the world found the political will to fight for meaningful reforms to ensure justice for their people. But let me tell you guys, those history books won't write themselves. So I want you to repeat after me. This is our time. This is our future. And I will do whatever it takes to protect our rights, to protect our planet, and to protect our people. Thank you.
My name is Varshini. It is a pleasure to be with you here today. So I want to say, when I first learned about the climate crisis as a kid, I would lie awake at night, my heart pounding, when I thought about what this would mean for my people. I couldn't get the images out of my head, right? What people would do to each other when they didn't have food, when they didn't have water, and when they sought sanctuary and were faced with cages and guns instead. And I felt alone and small and powerless. And I know that that is the story that so many young people are feeling right now. We've grown up seeing the political establishment fail us. And for twice as long as I have been alive on this planet, we have known about the crisis. For just as long, the wealthy and the powerful have profited off of pollution, have lied to millions of people about the science, have choked our democracy with their big oil dollars and stolen our futures. Today, this generation is taking over. Our days of waiting for justice, our days of waiting for action, our days of waiting to be heard are over. Am I right? Today we are putting our feet in the streets and we are not stopping until we get it done. Today, kids don't have to feel small and alone and powerless because we have a movement that is globally shaking the roots of our society, that is getting millions of people involved in action. And striking is how we can stop the worst of the climate crisis and get a Green New Deal. And if we want to win, we are going to need tens of millions of Americans to join us in the streets. If we are going to win, we have to bring society and our economy to a standstill and make it happen. If we are going to win, politicians are going to have to know that they will win or lose based off of where they stand on this issue. And we can do it. We've been here before as a people. In 1970, on the first Earth Day, 20 million people were in the streets. During the civil rights movement, young students and young people were arrested and took action and took risks by the tens of thousands. And that's what it takes to make change in this country. So I need all of you to be with me here in this fight. So I want you to imagine striking not just for one day, but day after day, marching and demonstrating incessantly, even shutting down our cities and schools and businesses to stop business as usual unless we get what we want and need as a generation. Are you with me in that fight? So today is a glorious start. And tomorrow, the fight continues, and I want to see you there.
That was Varshini Prakash, co-founder and executive director of the Sunrise Movement, joining 250,000 people in New York alone who marched from Foley Square to Battery Park in downtown New York City. As we continue our coverage of Friday's historic global climate strike, when as many as 4 million people marched around the globe. It was the largest protest ever focused on the climate crisis. Democracy Now! Was in the streets of New York Friday speaking to climate strikers.
I'm Isabella, I'm 12 years old, and I'm here today because I believe that age doesn't matter, and sure, we can't vote, but we still have a voice here. The earth is really messed up. We should have fixed it a while ago, and it's just not fair.
We are trying. Trump is lying. Stop denying. The earth is dying.
I get really worried about our future because I keep seeing a bunch of posts or things that say oh yeah, by 2030 that the world could be at its peak, that we can't do anything anymore. And I keep thinking, why don't people listen when things are right in front of their face?
My name is Daphne Flores. I'm 21 years old. I'm a born and raised New Yorker from West Harlem. The reason I'm here today is really because I'm tired. I'm tired of climate inaction. I'm tired of our world leaders ignoring what's really happening to our Earth and profiting off of the extinction of our planet, really. Prioritizing profit over lives instead of lives over profit. Being Latina, my Latina community, the Hispanic community, they are disproportionately faced by climate change because of the institutions that are placed in our communities. We have fossil fuel plants, we have garbage waste plants, we have bus depots and countless other infrastructures that pollute our environments. But you don't see these same infrastructures in affluent communities, but also being disabled. people with disabilities are really affected by climate change. You know, we don't have the privilege to be able to up and leave when a natural disaster occurs. And because natural disasters are getting more unpredictable, we're becoming prisoners to our habitats, our apartments, our homes, because we can't predict the damage that these storms will be able to bring. I'm here to say that we weren't the ones who started the climate movement. There's many generations before us who've been fighting for the same change, but we will be the ones to end it because enough is enough.
Eu sou Sonia Guajajara.
I'm Sonia Guajajara. I'm one of the executive coordinators of Brazilian Indigenous Peoples Articulation, and I'm here today to participate in the climate march bringing the voices of the indigenous peoples of Brazil to denounce all the destruction of the environment, the destruction of the Amazon, and the legalization of a genocide against indigenous people.
Da Amazônia e a legalização do genocídio dos povos indígenas no Brasil. Há 519 anos, os povos indígenas do Brasil resistem.
For 519 years, indigenous people in Brazil have been resisting, and we've been resisting by fighting against the political and economic powers that, under the name of development and in the name of progress, are authorizing more and more exploitation of our natural resources.
Autorizando, né, a exploração dos recursos naturais, explorando minérios,
exploiting mines, exploiting the rivers, and it's directly affecting our way of life.
Afetando diretamente os nossos modos de vida. E a Amazônia tá queimando, né, neste momento, muitos dos territórios.
The Amazon is burning at this exact moment. Lots of territories are on fire.
Nós atribuímos o aumento desses incêndios a esse discurso, né, do governo Bolsonaro de.
We attribute the increase in the fires to the rhetoric of the government of Jair Bolsonaro that incites attacks, that incites invasions, and incites deforestation.
Práticas do governo Jair Bolsonaro, né,
the practices of the Bolsonaro government are consolidating this government as the biggest enemy of indigenous people and the environment.
Acho que nós estamos nesse momento do despertar.
I think we're in a time of awakening. Lots of people are waking up to the urgent need to fight for the environment. And for that, it's necessary for people to have political and ecological consciousness, to call out and pressure the governments in their countries in order to adopt sustainable policies, not only destructive ones.
Adotar políticas sustentáveis e não apenas de destruição.
My name is Ramon Cruz. I'm with the Sierra Club. 2 years ago, exactly, in Puerto Rico, we saw the most devastating hurricane that we have seen in many generations, no? And because of that, there were many people displaced. Many people had to move the island. The economy went even further devastated, and all this is direct also effect of climate change. So we're seeing, you know, we were one of the many climate victims or climate refugees that we're seeing, and we're starting to see that elsewhere. No, we saw the brothers and sisters from the Bahamas suffering basically as much, if not even more, that we did in Puerto Rico, where 1 year after there were still people without electricity. There were still people feeling the effects.
My name is Tanika Bright. I just turned 18 years old, and I'm here because climate change is an urgent issue. Scientists say we up to 2030, and I'm only going to be like 29 then, so it's my future at stake.
I'm Delphine, and I'm 9 years old, and I'm out here today to protest climate change. I'm asking them to pick up their trash more because it's not just kids who make the mess, it's a lot of grown-ups too.
Yes, my name is Shir Sonia. I am from the Philippines, and I am here today because I want to stand in solidarity with all of the young people who are rising up and standing up for the future. I've never seen anything like this before, and it's truly, truly amazing. Yes, the climate crisis is a matter of life and death for Filipinos, and we all know that the story is quite simple and classic. Those who have the least contribution to this problem are those who feel the brunt of its impacts, and that is so unfair, that is so unjust. And in the Philippines, we face massive typhoons, superstorms, and massive droughts. And this is a matter of life for us, and it's affecting real lives, real people, real livelihoods. And you know, when we come into the streets like this, in my country, when you defend the environment, you can die, you can be killed. And I hope people in America recognize that you have this space to be able to express our views about the future and about the planet. But not every country in the world has that privilege.
My name's Alina Hudson. I'm from the Bronx High School of Science. And my science says that ExxonMobil knew about climate change about 50 years ago, and they did nothing about it. They actually paid money so that they could deny it. They spread propaganda against climate change, and we need to hold them accountable.
My name is Becky Tran. I'm a scientist and science communicator. I'm with March for Science today, and scientists are joining the climate strike today because we've had enough. Like, we've been warning the world about climate change for decades and decades and decades. Politicians have not listened to us, and we need a change, a transformative change in society right now. And that's why scientists are here in their thousands. They're here marching all around the world because we're angry, because we serve the community. We serve frontline communities. We serve our youths to try to make a better world. And right now, researching is not enough. We're leaving the labs and we're demanding action in the streets with everyone here today.
My name is Halima Ali and I'm from Somalia, and I work for an organization called Save Somali Women and Children. I think in the climate crisis that we can see the strike is all about is really happening in countries like Somalia. Particularly, there was drought 3 consecutive years that we've never had rainfalls, and that means that people have been losing animals, and these are the only standard living that they ever had. So meaning that they've lost literally everything. So that means that once they lose everything, then they have to be displaced. And once you're displaced, it means that you're forced out of your house. Once these families are forced, of course, it exposes them into risks of being, human rights violations happening.
My name is Kareem Khan. I'm the Secretary General of Amnesty International, and Amnesty International is in this march because we want to send a message to the world that climate change constitutes a mass death penalty facing all the people on the planet right now. That's the reality of how we have neglected acting on it, so we are running out of time. And the significance of this particular day, which is already, we know, the largest number of people have come out on a single day of climate action, is the fact that young people have brought a moral appeal and a prick to the conscience of even the most toughest CEOs of fossil fuel companies. I'm not sure whether it's going to get through to Trump because he seems to have a tougher nut to crack. But bottom line is, I feel that we are reaching the tipping point now where global public opinion is shifting in a direction where it's going to be irresistible for governments to not act. So yes, we are not there yet, but the momentum is building to send a message that nature does not negotiate. We cannot change the science, and all that we have in our will to change now is political will. And to existing political leaders, they need to understand that political will is a renewable resource. So if they don't get their act together, they will find themselves out of power if they're not willing to listen to the appeals of our children.
Voices from the global climate strike in New York. The protest ended at Battery Park, where 16-year-old Swedish climate activist Greta Thunberg addressed the crowd. But first, Artemisa Chakra, a 19-year-old indigenous activist from Brazil, took to the stage.
Meu nome é Artemisa Chakra. Eu tenho 19 anos.
My name is Artemisa Chakra. I am 19 years old and I am from the Chakra Iba people in Brazil. I am here today representing the more than 25 million indigenous and traditional communities from the Global Alliance of Territorial Communities. This alliance is formed by 4 organizations: APIB from Brazil, COICA from the Amazon Basin, AMPB from Central America, and AMAN from Indonesia. Together we protect 600 million hectares of forest. But I am also here as a young woman, because there is no difference between an indigenous young female activist like myself and a young indigenous female activist like Greta. Our future is connected by the same threads of the climate crisis. The Amazon is on fire. The Amazon agonizes year after year for the responsibility of the government and its destructive policies that intensify deforestation and drought, not only in the Amazon, but in the other 5 Brazilian biomes. Climate change is a result of this, and it also helps to make the fires stronger. And beyond the Amazon, there are the forests of Indonesia, Africa, North America, whose suffering has such an impact in my life and in your life. We, the indigenous peoples, are the children of nature, so we fight for our Mother Earth, because the fight for Mother Earth is the mother of all other fights. We are fighting for your lives. We are fighting for our lives. We are fighting for our sacred territory. But we are being persecuted, threatened, murdered, only for protecting our own territories. We cannot accept one more drop of indigenous blood spilled.
Nenhuma gota mais de sangue indígena.
It is my honor to introduce Greta Thunberg.
Hello, New York City. It is an honor for me to be here with all of you today on this historical day. People are striking today in over 150 countries. On all continents. And when I say all continents, I mean all continents, even Antarctica. Even on Antarctica, people are striking. And we are not in school today. And this time, we are not alone. We have some adults who are not at work today either. And why? Because this is an emergency. Our house is on fire. And it's not just the young people's house. We all live here. It affects all of us. And we will not just stand aside and watch. We are united behind the science, and we will do everything in our power to stop this crisis from getting worse. Even if that means skipping school or work, because this is more important. Why should we study for a future that is being taken away from us? That is being stolen for profit. And some people say we should study to become climate scientists or politicians so that we can, in the future, solve the climate crisis. But by then it will be too late. We need to do this now. And this Monday, world leaders are going to be gathered here in New York City for the United Nations Climate Action Summit. The eyes of the world will be on them. They have a chance to prove that they, too, are united behind the science. They have a chance to take leadership, to prove they actually hear us. Do you think they hear us? We will make them hear us. We have not taken to the streets, sacrificing our education for the adults and politicians to take selfies with us and tell us that they really, really admire what we do. We are doing this to wake the leaders up. We are doing this to get them to act. We deserve a safe future. And we demand a safe future. Is that really too much to ask? Right now, we are the ones who are making a difference. If no one else will take action, then we will. It should not be that way. We should not be the ones who are fighting for the future, and yet here we are. But we are not just some young people skipping school or some adults who are not going to work. We are a wave of change. Together and united, we are unstoppable. This is what people power looks like. We will rise to the challenge. We will hold those who are the most responsible for this crisis accountable, and we will make the world leaders act. We can and we will. And if you belong to that small group of people who feel threatened by us, then we have some very bad news for you. Because this is only the beginning. Change is coming, whether they like it or not.
16-year-old Swedish climate activist Greta Thunberg speaking on Friday at the global climate strike in New York. Today, she's addressing the UN Climate Action Summit. Yes, at the United Nations, she's addressing the UN General Assembly. Special thanks for those in the streets on Friday of Democracy Now! Covering these protests. John Hamilton, Sharina Nadura, Libby Rainey, John Randolph, Maria Teresina, and Elian Perez and Naila Jamil. Also Jessica Wheeler and Nicole Haber. When we come back, we'll be joined by Bill McKibben, co-founder of 350.org. Stay with us.